Hello, everyone, and welcome to Leading Indicator. I'm Axios senior business reporter Hope King here with CEO of IMAX, Rich Gelfond. Rich, it's always great to see you.
It's great to see you, Hope.
So we're talking today as we see Deadpool and Wolverine nearing the record that Joker set for the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you at the screening a couple of weeks ago, but what do you think it is about maybe R-rated movies now where maybe Disney in the past had said this isn't really for us, but now could be, according to some analysts I've been talking to, part of their strategy going forward?
Well, but first of all, Hope, I think it's part of a broader trend, which is a whole array of movies are working. So it's not just R-rated movies, it's kind of a lot of things. So rom-com movies are working. You saw the Blake Lively.
Yeah. They're a power duo in Hollywood right now. Ryan Reynolds and his wife.
Movie working. You saw Twisters working. You saw Inside Out working. So you're seeing animated movies, you're seeing general movies, and I think, people forget that the last 4 years, for different reasons, there's been a lid on the movie business. First the pandemic and then the dual strikes. So now we're out in a more normal time. So I think you have to look at that by way of background. If you went back last year also, Oppenheimer was an R-rated movie and also did, extremely strong box office. As you say, Deadpool is closing in on the Joker record. I just think it's movies in general. I don't think it's a particular appeal for R-rated movies. On the other hand, I think people want something original and something that maybe is edgy. And I don't know if you got a chance to see Deadpool, but it's definitely an edgy movie, and the R rating contributed. And I think it was self-mocking in certain ways, and it was just fun. And I think people are ready for fun. So as long as the movie has some kind of special element, irrespective of the ratings, people are turning out.
Well, Ryan Reynolds has told the Hollywood Reporter that he thinks it's one of those first, 4 quadrant films, hitting all the key demographics for theater going. So that's what I was really referring to. Is for Disney, it's sort of, yes, they've had Marvel for a while, but really kind of a risk for that studio specifically, especially on the backs of Inside Out 2. They're now the only studio that have had 2 back-to-back billion-dollar-plus releases. We're seeing a repeat of what we saw last year with Barbie and Oppenheimer. I know on the earnings call with your investors, you said that you're now seeing everything sort of return back to normal after their strikes and after the pandemic. So what do you think will be the biggest drivers of theaters going forward? Will it continue to be blockbusters like this? Is that the only way that theaters can come back to those levels of audience viewership?
Well, I think we have to separate out theaters. As you know, IMAX is a technology platform, not a theater operator. So we don't sell concessions. We don't have leases. We don't have debt. Our model is to license our technology and to get paid by both the theater operators and the studios for licensing our technology. And it's a special platform which creates awe-inspiring experiences on a global basis. So for us, it's always been more about creating events, and that's always involved, bigger movies and blockbuster kinds of things. And as you know, we've recently expanded, into more kinds of things. So we did the Olympics live, the Olympics opening ceremony, which was spectacular. And we did a documentary in the last quarter called Blue Angels, which did very well. So I think from our point of view, it's more events, and that's less smaller kinds of things and more larger kinds of experiences, social experiences. For the theatrical business in general, I think it also holds a little bit true, less so because they have, 15 screens at a multiplex to fill, so they need more quantity. But I think under the IMAX model, the blockbuster thing clearly benefits us. If you look ahead to 25, we've got a period from May till September or through September where we can't program another movie because there are blockbuster movies, pretty much every 2 weeks through that period. And that doesn't count the end of the year when Avatar comes in. So I think the 25 blockbuster rich year will benefit the exhibitors in general, but will disproportionately benefit IMAX.
I know that you get this mix up all the time. People, I mean, first of all, you know, I think people look to you as somebody who represents the industry for better or worse, but I think you're always right to be distinctly calling out your business versus just general theaters. So I appreciate that. But I think more generally speaking to the blockbusters, right? Last year, I think IMAX made up 20% of Barbie and 20% of Oppenheimer globally. I mean, you are a big driver of these blockbusters, but then this content that you have, and I think you call it, the company calls it alternative content. You did an NBA finals and IMAX locations in Hong Kong and Taiwan. Explain why this is an important part now of your business going forward, is adding new types of live events. Your earnings call was right before the Paris opening ceremony. So explain why that's so important now to the IMAX business. More live, maybe more sports, more concerts.
Yes, I would use the caption alternative content, rather than live, and it also includes foreign language content
And documentaries.
So 20% of our box office last year and our revenues were international content. So it was Indian movies, not only in India but in England and the U.S., and it was Japanese anime throughout the world. So we look at it, since we're in 90 countries, that everybody has unique tastes, and the only things that are events aren't necessarily Hollywood movies. So the Taylor Swift Eras Tour movie did extremely well for us. This year we did a Queen concert, which did very well. We did the Talking Heads last year. You mentioned both the Olympics and the NBA. I just think our platform is so special and audiences want it so much that why limit it to only Hollywood content, and why not use it for other kinds of these events? So, we tested during the opening ceremony of the Olympics this year, and I went to Lincoln Square in New York City to see it. And, it was spectacular. Now, the financial results, it was a test. There was some great examples, some less so. But Lincoln Square was sold out, and I bought a ticket and went there. And in 4 hours, not one person left their seats. So it was just showed the power of the experience. And I think what we're looking to is how to expand it beyond just Hollywood blockbusters.
And I know you were asked this too by an analyst about the Sphere and the experience that in Las Vegas people, and I know you were there for the U2 concert. So, but that's not something that you think is scalable globally, right? What the Sphere delivers?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably scalable beyond Las Vegas, but not on a mass place. Like, we have almost 2,000 theaters in the world. That's not an experience. Just the capital costs are too high, and the costs of creating content are too high. So I think it's a really good experience, but not one that has, kind of the potential that an IMAX does to scale globally. On the other hand, though, I think that the Sphere shows the public's appetite for different unique experiences out of the home. And, I do think you're going to see IMAX when we're talking about alternative content. Another one we're working on would be kind of like, a really phenomenal, like, kind of visual and sound, almost a hallucination type experience, which we could do on a global base. And I think given the appetite of our fan base, which, they're age 20s and 30s, somewhat older, I think we could take the success of the Sphere and build on it in a different way. But I don't really see that as competitive.
Okay, hallucination. You need to explain that a little bit more. Do I need to take something to sit in the theater to get that full experience? So hallucination?
No, definitely not. I think just take yourself. But okay. I'm talking about we could do, different light kind of things, different sound kinds of things, play with the aspect ratios, play with colors, and create something that's really special.
All right, well, let's go back to all of the ways that you think IMAX can help content providers, whether it's the NBA, whether it's even NBC and the Olympics. Take us behind the scenes of those conversations. Did NBC approach IMAX and say, we have an opportunity to maybe partner here? Or did IMAX reach out to NBC and say, we have the opportunity to show this experience in a theater in the most immersive experience that someone can get?
Well, somewhere in the middle, because Comcast is owns NBC. And as you know, we had a phenomenal experience with Universal around Oppenheimer. So we met with the senior people at Comcast and we said, what other kinds of things we can do rather than Hollywood movies? And it evolved out of those discussions. And again, it's too early to say where it goes, but we've already heard back from NBC saying what other kinds of things we can do, because this really was taking the platform and taking things that obviously look good and do really well to a mass market on TV. But I think on issues like that, it's less generating a lot of income for NBC and more creating, eventicizing the experience. So people talk about it, and I certainly don't want to claim credit for this, but I think, the fact the opening ceremonies were so special and were so widely seen contributed to the overall success of the Olympics.
And you had mentioned, too, that with the announcement of Seline, Dion her performance, and Lady Gaga, that you might have seen last-minute sales. How did that event ultimately turn out for you at IMAX?
Well, it turned out really well. NBC was really happy. I told you, in terms of building our brand and viewing the experience, like I kind of yelled at a lot of people at IMAX who didn't go see it. And I said, what is wrong with you? It's like an entirely different thing. So I think at this stage with some of those alternative experiences, we have this terrific core business, which 2023 was, almost equal our best year ever, 2019, coming out of the strikes and pandemic. So we have the luxury of playing with different ideas. And I think the word experimentation comes to mind. It wasn't going to affect our bottom line in the one event we did, but I think it will affect our future business and the way we can show off the kinds of experiences we can create.
Well, speaking of future business, and I'm wondering how much of these types of alternative content opportunities you bring into your pitch meetings, because one of the things going forward is that you now expect to install more IMAX systems worldwide than you previously did. Is that demand coming from exhibitors who think that they can fill those slower Tuesday night slots with things like, I couldn't go to the opening ceremonies at the IMAX because it was during the workday, but I feel like for some people who can, like that's something they can go to an IMAX and see. So is this now part of your pitch as you're trying to grow exhibitors who install your technology?
It is part of our pitch, but I think it's a much more unified pitch than that. Our market share has gone up over the last couple of years. We're dramatically higher than we were pre-pandemic. There's a shift to premium going on. So the market share, not only of IMAX, but other outsized experiences, has gone up dramatically. I think if you're an exhibitor and you're looking to fill your box, adding more screens, where there's a shrinkage of the number of small and medium-sized movies, has proved less effective than putting IMAX screens in. And you look at, year to date for the first 6 months, we're about 100 new signings. As you mentioned, we increased our install guidance on the bottom end last quarter. So there is a lot of activity in the world. Part of, as you mentioned, alternative content is documentary content. And we made this film about the Blue Angels, which was the #1 documentary in theaters this year. And then it went on to be very successful on Amazon's platform afterwards. I think it's all part of the same pitch. And I think the umbrella over the pitch is providing these awe-inspiring experiences, incenting people to leave the home, incenting people, to pay a premium price for it. It's all part of it.
Well, speaking of this being all part of the same mix, I think I'd be remiss not to ask you about what you heard from Warner Brothers Discovery, from Paramount, from Disney over the past couple of days, writing down legacy television, broadcast, cable businesses and what that really says about what's happening in the media landscape, especially as you are diversifying your own revenue towards streaming, getting in with Amazon and having Blue Angels on the platform. So what is the right mix at this point for all of these huge, large content creators?
Well, I wish I knew the answer to that, because I'd be a lot smarter than any of them are. And for my private investment portfolio, I make a lot of money. One of the ways to think about it, Hope, though, is, while they're all saying we don't know what's working, we don't know where to go, one thing that seems to be working pretty well is the out-of-home entertainment experience and the theatrical experience. And you mentioned a few minutes ago about the billion-dollar back-to-back box offices, but IMAX has had 10% of the or more of the domestic box office on less than 1% of the screen. I don't remember the number, but it's something like 7 movies in a row. And you look at next year, where there are 14 movies that were actually shot for IMAX next year, and those are the ones that really index high, like Dune 2, like Oppenheimer. And actually this weekend coming up is Alien Romulus by Disney. And if you look at their marketing campaign, it's really very much focused on IMAX and how scary it is in IMAX. And, one I think you'll enjoy just because it's funny, marginally relevant. But in China, we're doing a competition where we're wiring people's hearts in the theater. And the person who has the highest heart rate during Alien Romulus wins a prize, and the person who has the lowest heart rate wins a prize. So I think it's all about these experiences and how people can enjoy these experiences, and that's our sweet spot.
Yeah, I mean, that's lots of liability waivers, I'd imagine. You have to sign for that kind of competition. I don't know. People are drinking.
Volunteering to go.
Well, like people are drinking coffee just to juice their heart rate a little bit. No, I do love the Alien franchise. Just lastly on this note, though, there are some speculations, there are some rumors, there are some analysts who are saying maybe Apple should buy Warner Brothers. I mean, you've been, little tech in theaters and in this space for a while, and you got big tech coming in. Apple is pushing really hard into theaters. They've got the Formula One movie coming out next year. You're working again with Amazon, these streamers. What's your take on the impact that big tech has had, and will they take up a larger share of what the Disneys of the world have done previously?
Well, I mean, there's no question that big tech and their entry into the business has caused a lot of disruption and has caused a lot of kind of soul searching by the traditional studios as to where their niche is and where they should direct their resources. And I think there's no question that the entry of big tech has partly influenced the strategy of the studios and where they're placing their bets. How that ends up, and is there consolidation or is there more tech? You didn't raise the fact because we don't have endless time, but AI is certainly going to be a big factor, both for the tech companies and the Hollywood studios. And I know there's some controversy around that, but there's never been an invention, that's kept locked in the closet forever that Hollywood and big tech hasn't figured out to use. So I do think, big tech has a big influence, but I think everybody's trying to figure out, is that growing into new areas? Is it consolidation? Is it changing the business? But remember, the one thing that's working really well right now is theatrical. And if you look at the 25 and 26 slates, they certainly look better than anything in the last couple of years. So I think, as your audience wants to look where to place a safe bet, I think that's a place to look.
Well, especially with the franchises. I mean, Avatar, as you mentioned, there's already a built-in audience. I mean, is this the future of theater experiences, though? I mean, on top of just maybe more premium, bigger in the space that you play, but just generally that we're going to see like Avatar 25, eventually? Like, is this the only way that a theater or a studio can ensure that their risk of failure is low?
Well, I think there are better odds on the blockbuster end of the scale. And, IMAX contributes so much of the overall box office to the studio's take. So you're seeing a lot of that. I think that's a point. But, if there's one thing I've learned in my 30 years as running this company, it's that, you can't predict too far out. That, the media tends to focus on a weekend as being a trend. And I think, who would have thought that a movie about a doll last year and a movie about a nuclear program would have broken out the way they did. So I think it's way too dangerous to try and overgeneralize. But I do think, the blockbuster end of the scale and certainly the experiential end of the scale as represented by IMAX look like good bets right now.
All right, as we enter the last couple of questions, going back to your business very specifically, I want to focus on the rest of the world. China is a big part of your business. I know you travel there quite often. You've seen luxury makers report some pockets of weakness with Chinese consumers. I'm wondering if you're seeing that in your business reflected in any of the attendance and any of the way that they're showing up or not as they used to, given some of the challenges economically speaking in that country.
So the rest of the world in general is doing pretty well this year. China is weaker in terms of their overall box office. They're down from 2023. And I think a lot of that reasons for that have to do with the mix of the content that there is in China. Certainly, the economy has been stronger than it is right now. And, IMAX has kind of been consistent with the overall box office and seeing somewhat of a weaker year this year. However, when you look ahead to next year, the titles that we think are coming out for Chinese New Year, the ones filmed with IMAX cameras, the Hollywood films coming in, I think China will have a better year in 25.
So are you saying it's a little bit more difficult to pull out if the attendance is related to their own sensitivity to going out and spending versus the supply of movies that are out there? Is it you can't really tell which factor it is?
Hope, I think I'm saying the slate this year was weaker than people had anticipated. And I think that's more of the reason, because on a movie by movie basis, Avatar, which is only a year and a half ago, was one of our biggest movies, ever in China and globally. And some local China movies, including Wandering Earth 2, did extremely well. So I think if the right content is there, people will come out. But I think in an environment where the right content is not as plentiful and the economy isn't rocking the way it is, you have to overcome those issues.
All right. And just lastly, going back to what is next for IMAX and all the different ways that you're looking at putting different content. You and I talked in December of last year about even short form video like TikTok. I'm wondering if that's something you are exploring, adding TikTok videos or showing TikTok videos of some sort on some of your screens. And as well, you look at all of the different TV series that are out on the platforms. Is that something that you're looking at, is getting people into the theaters to binge a weekend of Stranger Things, for example?
We've done a number of projects with Apple. We've done some things with Amazon. So I think as part of widening our aperture, I think you'll continue to see more of that. In terms of TikTok videos, I don't know. I think we are always experimenting. That one sounds a little farther away, but we're open-minded and we always try and be innovative.
And what about live sports? Just because I know that live sports is a huge draw for broadcasters still.
Yeah, I think given our experience with the Olympics and, as you mentioned, the NBA finals in Taiwan and in Hong Kong, there are a number of discussions going on there, and I think you'll see more of that.
All right. Well, I hope you think of us next time you plan to release any of these new strategies. It was great to reconnect as always, Rich. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thanks, Hope. See you soon.
See you soon.